We never know what will save us. This year's was the worst Christmas tree. I knew it as soon as we brought it home. This year's tree at my house is the kind of tree that any way you turn it looks like it's about to fall over. This tree doesn't have a good side. We tried to pep ourselves up. I'm sure it'll look better with the lights on. Friends, the lights did little to improve the situation. We tried to talk ourselves into this tree. I mean, once you've brought it home, there's no going back. This is your family Christmas tree now. This tree was holy, by which I do not mean sacred nor blessed, nor consecrated by God. When I call it holy, what I mean is that it was full of holes. Like there were gaps in the branches, so many holes that the tree established somehow a negative paradox. So as when ornaments were finally draped around its branches, it just appeared overrun by junky trinkets, but at a second glance, simultaneously far too sparse. Somehow, at the same time. The problem with Christmas trees is that they quickly become harbingers or perhaps metaphors for how the holiday is going to unfold that year. Like, I knew it. This would be the worst Christmas ever. And on December 3rd, the afternoon we brought it home from the lot, the holiday season was already feeling grim in my home. Just a few days earlier, we had launched into a fast and furious health scare with one of our children that has since turned out to be nothing. It's okay. But for 5 terrifying days, early in December, it was possibly something. Though all is well now, I assure you, that was a holy week. By which I do not mean sacred, nor peaceful, nor blessed, but as in full of holes. It was time away from school, away from work and home, spent in doctor's offices suddenly, and most notably a lost afternoon, an evening in an emergency department, all culminating in 2 exhausted parents who had been through the ringer and suddenly realized it was probably the day to get the tree. The raising of the tree and the decking of the halls was not the joyful, peaceful family experience I remembered having in past years. Instead, we complained about the tree's holes and we whined about the effort, never pausing to realize the stress of the week's health scare had reached a fever pitch in our psyches and was walling us off from the holiday spirit. I mean, how would we ever return to each other? How would we face the avalanche of December activities and demands with such spiritual depletion on what, December 3rd? I mean, we were feeling holy, by which I do not mean glorified nor wondrous, by which I meant there were large gaps in our family unit where we could just not shake the feeling that something was missing inside each of us. Even our son had confessed to feeling like, after spending time in the hospital, feeling like he didn't quite belong with us anymore, he said. It was that same child, the one who had been through the mysterious health scare, who stopped us in our tracks that very first night, right before bedtime. He ordered us all on the couch, directly in front of the tree. He ran around the house, turning off every light in every room. He physically held my feet and placed them on the coffee table one by one until I was prone, leaning back. And then he laid down atop my body, already in his PJs. He lifted my arms and placed them around him, first one and then the other, until I was fully enveloping him. With barely any words, he instructed James to do the same beside me with our other son. So both children were laying down on both parents, and we were all facing the tree. James played some instrumental acoustic Christmas carols, and then together we embarked on what I have now come to realize was a communal spiritual practice. Sighing into my arms, my son began describing the way the rainbow Christmas lights played on the ceiling. He asked wondering questions about each and every ornament. What do you think that one would taste like if you licked it? Look at that ornament. Do you remember when we made that in school last year? Mom, which one's your favorite? Dad, what do you think is the oldest ornament on our tree? This guided meditation continued for over 30 minutes, with the sun setting behind our house as each child and adult became drowsy and the darkness of the long winter's nights settled in. My child's body relaxed for the very first time since we had started the scary but brief health journey 5 days earlier. It was, in truth, the sweetest, most delicious hour I had remembered spending in a long, long time. At last, I picked him up and carried him to his bed, probably for one of the last times, and it felt like placing a baby into a manger. And my thoughts drifted to children in Bethlehem today in Palestine who are living and dying under siege, whose trauma is beyond anything my little family has ever experienced. And I realized we are, each of us, holy this year, by which I mean we have an empty space inside of us, one that grieves and cries out in anguish for the hope of all children's safety in all lands. Peace in our hearts is impossible without peace in Bethlehem, and my worry and fear for my child is connected to the worry and fear of Mary, of Joseph, of all who care for the children of the earth. But back to Atlanta, where I was putting my own child down for bed, and finally, he slept well for the first time all week. The empty spaces in his sense of well-being were slowly being filled in by the sweet meditation of the tree we had shared. He had come home to himself. He was reconnected back to us, back into the family. Well, the next night, what do you think happened? He called for everyone to return to the living room once again for that evening's tree gazing, we now called it. Again, we settled in with soft music, finding new wondering questions about the tree and its ornaments. By the third day of this Advent practice, I was simply living for 7 p.m. The hours ticked by throughout my day, and I could not wait to get to 7 o'clock p.m. when it would be time for tree gazing. Couldn't wait. Tree gazing. We now all look forward to our time together nearly every night of this December. We have found that we could withstand any new stress, any disappointment, or maximum effort of the holiday season as long as we could just make it to 7 p.m. and our tree gazing time. That moment where we can reconnect with the warmth of our bodies, breathing together in the darkness, wonderment at the rainbow lights, the way they danced all around us. It was the 8-year-old child who reminded us our bodies hold a deeper wisdom. That simple knowing, beneath the grief we may be feeling this year for loved ones who are not with us right now, or fearful rage we may be feeling at world events, or anxiety over our health or the health of our beloveds. When we are out of sorts, when so much change is happening all around us and outside of our control, our bodies know how to return to center, to reconnect. And so we return again to Bethlehem. We sing old carols. We settle in front of a lighted tree. We celebrate the birth of hope, the birth of love that is more expansive and more inclusive than any the world has known. We bring it forth yet again this year, amidst the chaos of our time. May you find these quiet moments of connection. Perhaps you'll find it deepening the meaning of an old tradition, in those rituals that cross generations and time, reminding us of our grandparents and the things they loved. Through these discovered moments of deep connection, we all become the holy family, by which I mean full of grace, full of wonderment and peace, blessed just for a moment, if only at 7:00 p.m. on most December nights. Holy. This year's was our favorite Christmas tree, after all. We never know what will save us. We can only take care to notice, to see that star in the sky, to notice what is saving us, to notice our being saved, and call it holy. Amen. Blessed be.